Content advisory. This documentary discusses military operations during World War II, including strategic bombing campaigns. In August 1940, the German Luftwaffe stood close to achieving its primary objective, defeating Royal Air Force Fighter Command and securing air superiority over southern England. RAF airfields across the south of Britain had endured weeks of sustained attack. Runways were damaged, communications infrastructure disrupted, and fighter squadrons were operating under extreme strain. Aircraft losses were mounting, and pilot fatigue was becoming a serious concern. Then on September 7, 1940, the Luftwaffe abruptly redirected its main effort away from RAF bases and toward London. This operational shift would become one of the most consequential decisions of the Battle of Britain. To understand why this change occurred, it is necessary to examine the original German strategy and how it was progressing during the summer of 1940. Following the fall of France in June, Adolf Hitler issued Führer Directive No. 16 on July 16th, ordering preparations for Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. The directive stated explicitly that an invasion could proceed only after the Luftwaffe had achieved air superiority over southern England and the English Channel. Responsibility for this task rested with Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, who assured Hitler that his air force could accomplish the mission within a matter of weeks. The German air offensive began in earnest on August 13, designated Adlertag, or Eagle Day. Luftwaffe operational orders from this period identified three primary target categories: RAF Fighter Command airfields and ground facilities, aircraft manufacturing plants, and the chain-home radar stations along the British coastline. The strategic logic was straightforward. Destroy the airfields and British fighters could not operate effectively. Disrupt aircraft production and combat losses could not be replaced. Suppress radar and fighter command would lose the early warning that allowed it to deploy limited resources efficiently. Throughout mid and late August, the Luftwaffe concentrated heavily on these objectives. Sector airfields such as Kenley, Biggin Hill, Hornchurch, and North Weald were repeatedly attacked. RAF operational records indicate that these raids achieved measurable results. Runways were cratered, hangars damaged, fuel stores hit, and communications repeatedly disrupted, often forcing temporary suspension of operations. By the end of August, Fighter Command was under severe pressure. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding later described this period as the most dangerous phase of the entire battle. Several sector stations had suffered serious damage, and repair crews worked continuously to keep airfields operational, often under the threat of renewed attack. The margin for error was narrow, and losses were difficult to absorb. Pilot attrition posed a particularly serious problem. Between August 24th and September 6th, Fighter Command lost 103 pilots killed and 128 seriously wounded. During the same period, only 63 replacement pilots completed training and reached operational squadrons. This produced a net loss of 168 experienced pilots in just 2 weeks. Aircraft strength also declined. RAF records show that serviceable fighter numbers fell from 672 aircraft on August 24th to 635 by September 6th. Most critically, sustained attacks on sector stations threatened the fighter control system itself. Sector operations rooms, telephone exchanges, and communications lines were essential for coordinating interceptions and directing squadrons to incoming raids. Damage to this infrastructure reduced reaction times and degraded Fighter Command's ability to deploy its limited forces efficiently at a moment when operational strain was already severe. Despite this pressure, German intelligence assessments were deeply flawed. Luftwaffe intelligence consistently underestimated RAF fighter strength and overestimated the damage inflicted by German raids. On August 16th, after only 3 days of major operations, German estimates claimed that Fighter Command had been reduced to approximately 300 operational aircraft. In reality, the true figure was more than double that number. These errors stem from multiple causes. Germany lacked an effective intelligence network inside Britain and relied heavily on pilot combat reports, which naturally tended to exaggerate success. Aerial reconnaissance could identify damaged airfields but could not accurately assess how quickly repairs were carried out, how many reserve aircraft remained available, or how flexible the British command system actually was. German planners also misunderstood how Fighter Command functioned. They assumed that destroying individual airfields would permanently eliminate the fighters based there. They did not fully appreciate the RAF's ability to disperse squadrons, operate from satellite fields, and continue flying even when sector stations sustained damage. Against this background, a series of events in late August triggered a decisive shift in German targeting priorities. On the night of August 24th to 25th, German bombers strayed off course during raids near London, dropping bombs on central districts of the city. German operational records indicate that these attacks were not authorized. Nevertheless, they prompted a British response. On August 25th, RAF bombers carried out a raid on Berlin. The physical damage was limited, but the political impact was considerable. Hitler reacted angrily to the Berlin raid. On September 4th, speaking publicly in Berlin, he declared that German forces would retaliate against British cities. This announcement created strong political pressure on the Luftwaffe to deliver visible and dramatic results. At the same time, intelligence reports continued to suggest that Fighter Command was close to collapse. On September 5th, Göring met with his air fleet commanders and ordered a shift toward large-scale attacks on London. The objective was to force Fighter Command into a decisive battle and destroy its remaining strength. Some commanders supported the decision enthusiastically, while others expressed reservations. The directive nevertheless stood. The first major daylight attack on London followed on September 7th. Large bomber formations struck the docks and industrial areas of the capital. From the German perspective, the raids appeared successful. Bombs were delivered, fires were started, and RAF fighters did not prevent the attacks from reaching their targets. Strategically, however, the consequences were immediate. Pressure on RAF airfields and sector stations eased. Repair work could proceed without constant interruption. Communication systems were restored, and Fighter Command's control network regained effectiveness. Pilots received limited but vital respite, allowing squadrons to recover operational efficiency. At the same time, bombing London imposed new costs on the Luftwaffe. Longer flight distances reduced sortie rates and increased fuel consumption. German bombers remained exposed to British fighters for longer periods, suffering growing losses without eliminating Fighter Command as a fighting force. On September 15th, the Luftwaffe launched its largest daylight raids against London. Fighter Command responded in strength, demonstrating that it remained capable of coordinated defense. German losses were significant, and the expected collapse of British air resistance did not occur. By mid-September, it was clear that air superiority had not been achieved. As autumn weather approached and losses mounted, Hitler postponed Operation Sea Lion indefinitely on September 17th. The invasion was never attempted. The Luftwaffe continued bombing British cities during what became known as the Blitz, but the campaign failed to achieve its strategic objectives. Fighter Command survived, Britain remained in the war, and Germany faced a prolonged conflict it had hoped to avoid. Most historians agree that the shift from attacking RAF infrastructure to bombing London was a critical German error. While flawed intelligence helps explain the decision, it does not change its outcome. Fighter Command, under severe strain, was granted a reprieve at the decisive moment. The Battle of Britain demonstrated that air superiority required accurate intelligence, sustained operational focus, and pressure on militarily effective targets. The decision to redirect the Luftwaffe's effort toward London altered the course of the campaign and ultimately the wider war. If you found this documentary analysis valuable, consider sharing your thoughts in the comments or subscribing for more World War II history.